Hello, I am Lorraine Harrison with About Marketing, and we are interviewing this morning someone that would be valuable to all of us. Not that we're all afraid of the IRS, but they certainly do get our attention. So we have Mr. Steve Perry with us this morning, and he has written a book on how to stand up to the IRS. And I believe, has about 40 years of experience with dealing with the IRS. So
not exactly. I've got 40 years in the tax world. I've got 10 years fighting the IRS.
Oh, I guess 10 years is enough to know what you're doing.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I just had my 11th year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. So anyway, we're going to learn something from Steve this morning. And the chapter of we've been going through the chapters of his book in a series to help us all with IRS. So our chapter today is chapter 4, and the subject of it is, what's the inside secret of the IRS? And I certainly am anxious to hear what that is. So how about, can you give us some ideas on what causes an audit? We're all afraid of audit.
Well, okay, in the first place, yes, most people are afraid of the IRS. Most people are terrified of audit. But you really shouldn't be. An audit, by definition, is a second look. Now, you asked the question, what causes them? Mm-hmm. There's a number of things. First, a certain percentage of audits are randomly generated. The computer just goes through. First, it eliminates the ones that are completely audit-proof. And those are basic 1040s where they took the standard deduction, didn't deduct anything else, had no credits. That's audit-proof. Those get thrown out. And then of the rest, a certain percentage, they'll pick at random. But the computers they have also look for certain red flags. An example might be a business owner who seems to be spending a lot more for supplies than others in his industry. Now, this could be totally legitimate. However, the IRS may want to look at it. And I do want to emphasize, Lorraine, not to be afraid of the IRS, but don't take it lightly either. You want to take it seriously, you want to have a rep, but the key to it,
a healthy respect.
A healthy respect is good, yes, because they are, it's just like if a detective came to your home. They're looking for evidence of wrongdoing. So the best way to protect yourself in an audit is have a trusted advisor and have a receipt for every expense you claim, and then let them come. But when they do come, you don't talk. You have a rep there, and a rep does your talking. One of the things I tell my clients going into a meeting with the IRS, with the auditor or anything else, you don't talk. Only I do.
Wow.
Because
it makes my tax return.
Yes, but I know not only what to say, but what not to say. There's a reason why a defense attorney won't let you talk in court. They don't want you admitting to guilt before the prosecution has brought it up. And I don't want you to admit to something that may cause the IRS to go digging.
Maybe they don't, whatever I say might tell them something that they weren't looking for anyway.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a great example. A lot of ladies love high-end shoes, like Versace. Is that a good name?
That's a good name.
Okay. Well, an auditor may come in and say, Lorraine, those are great-looking shoes. And being proud, you say, yeah, they're Versace. I have 12 more pair in my closet.
Uh-oh.
Yes, what you've just done is admitted you have a lot of assets. That's going to make the IRS auditor think, let's dig a little deeper. The better thing to have happened would be I step in and say, excuse me, Mr. Auditor, we're not here to talk about her shoes or her fashion. We're here to talk about the books. So let's stay focused, okay?
So you eliminated that, by the way.
That's right. I keep you from shooting yourself in the foot.
And those of us that are chatty have a tendency to share too much information, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not just the normally chatty people. I mean, most people love to talk.
Especially about themselves.
Yeah, or their kids or their grandkids. I bet if I whipped out my phone and started showing you my grandkids' pictures, you'd whip out your phone and do the same. which is fine in friendly company. IRS is not your friend. So what they are trying to do is look for and then make inquiries that lead them towards possible other infractions. Because an audit will say, we want to look at A, B, and C.
Okay.
It doesn't mean they can't arrive on site and say, yeah, now we want to look at D, E, and F. Especially if you tell me you've got 13 pairs of Versace.
So I've just told him I have enough money.
Yes, because that auditor may not know what a pair of Versace costs. But trust me, he or she can find out real fast.
Okay, well, what else? Why else do people get audited?
Sometimes it's third-party reports. Like if you've ever gotten a 1099, that goes to government. Bank reports, or it might be your neighbor. Somebody who doesn't like you calls the IRS, their whistleblower line, and says, hey, you know, this lady over here, she's driving a big fancy Cadillac, got a pool in the backyard, and was bragging she doesn't pay any tax. That may be true, it may not, but it could just be true. Most of the time, like I say, if they see a deduction that makes them raise their eyebrow.
I heard
Mm-hmm.
that if you turn somebody in, they're going to audit you too.
No.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it's against the law.
Oh, is it?
The whistleblower program is designed so that taxpayers can be the eyes of the IRS. Just like police have confidential informants, the IRS has taxpayers. And they have what's called a whistleblower program where if you turn someone in and more taxes are collected, you get a piece.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I thought you just got audited.
No, you don't. Now, if you are going to be a whistleblower, you probably ought to be sure your stuff's pretty well together because you might pique their attention, but probably not. The law says you're not supposed to be attacked because you blew the whistle on somebody. And oh, by the way, they kind of like whistleblowers.
I bet they do.
Enough to where they pay you a commission.
That's interesting. I had no idea. Well, does the IRS, like, what if somebody hasn't filed their taxes? I mean, how do they know? Or is it just in the computer system? And
Well, okay, they will know. That's an interesting question. And the first part is it depends on what sort of an entity they are. So if it's Johnny Lunchbucket who has a job, gets a W-2, and that's it, the government will know it didn't file because he got the W-2. Okay. Now, maybe he doesn't need to file. Because let's say that after he's taken the standard deduction, there's nothing left. Because he's way at the low end. In fact, the reason he should file is to get your earned income tax credit or the child tax credit. Now, if it's a business, quite often they get 1099. They may get information from banks. If they suspect someone is hiding income, they can do what's called a John Doe summons. And that's where they get it to a bank or a brokerage house. They've been using them a lot in cryptocurrency traders to see what you've been doing. Once
they can do that without you knowing about it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can walk into your bank with a John Doe summons or summons with your name on it that you want to see their bank records.
And you're telling us not to be afraid of the IRS?
No, you don't see that. The only time that would be a real problem is if you're trying to hide. If you're trying to hide income from the IRS, you should be afraid. Because they spend billions, that's with a B, looking for you. They're going to find you eventually. And when they do, you're going to pay a lot more than you would if you had just paid the tax. You know, the tax system is designed to not only fund the government, but actually mold behavior to a certain degree. So if someone is hiding their income, then there's probably a reason. And I'll give you a great example from history. Everybody knows Al Capone, right?
Mhm.
You know what he got sent to prison for?
Tax evasion.
Bingo. They got the bookkeeper to show that he made all this money, but he didn't pay taxes.
That's
And
the only way they could get him.
they couldn't get him on his murders, his bootlegging, or anything else. They got him on tax evasion because they got the bookkeeper. But, you know, the best thing to do it right, and you will never need my services. You should never need my services as a rep. But if you find yourself in trouble, that's when you call me.
Wow, okay. Well, that's comforting to know, you know, someone that can you fix it?
You'll find the word fix.
Well, I got this letter from the IRS,
Okay.
so
I can help you achieve the best possible outcome. Does that mean you won't pay taxes? No. Does that mean you're going to pay pennies on the dollar? Probably not. What it does mean is we're going to get you back in compliance so you're not looking around corners to see if the IRS wants to seize my house. You're not having people go through your finances because you've laid them out. You've done it right. And if you do it that way, there isn't a problem.
Well, I don't know that I should ask this question or not.
All right.
I had an audit one time
Mhm.
for my business, and as far as I was concerned, I thought we'd done everything up. But you know, you just still worried,
Sure.
and I was smart enough to get my accountant to go with me and do it. But this lady, I think she took a look at because it was a little strange, you know, the proportions of things were not like normal business.
Mm-hmm.
And she took one look at mine, and I think I could hear her. Oh, this is one I can do some good stuff with. And she just, every single item on there, we had to go through and so forth. As it turned out, evidently we'd done a good job because they ended up owing me some money. But it was like, you know, she really was out there to get me.
It was nothing personal. She was out to get money. Remember, the IRS, first and foremost, is a collection agency. Let me say that again. The IRS is a collection agency. Their function in life is to bring in as much tax revenue as possible at the lowest possible cost of them. So if they do an audit and then find you owe another $20,000 and can extract that, that's relatively cheap and a pretty good return on investment for them. And that's how they're graded. So yeah, that auditor probably was.
She probably didn't get a good rating on me because they ended up owing me.
Well, yeah, so, but she also learned something. She learned that not everyone is out to rob the government. I will tell you, having done this for over a decade, there are really very few zealots in the IRS, especially once they've been in there.
Really?
Years. Yeah. Most of them are just trying to get through their day. Now, there are a few, and sometimes they rise to higher points. But the reality is, you have a taxpayer bill of rights, and if you've got a good rep, they'll take care of that. We will stand between you. You know, let them take their wrath out on me. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. And I will force them to obey the rules.
If you're having an audit, does the taxpayer have to go if they have you?
Not generally. In fact, I would tell them to stay home.
That way they couldn't say something wrong.
Now, the IRS can really push the issue that we want the taxpayer in here. And, you know, I can argue, but if they really insist on it, fine. And then I'll say, it's my taxpayer. And she's going to sit here and not say a word. I'm going to turn you in. I'm going to say, you don't say a word no matter what they say.
All right. You know, I see that we're all afraid of audits. There are different levels of audit?
There are. I'm glad you asked that. The most benign audit is a correspondence audit. That's where they send a letter and say, we don't quite agree, and of course I'm paraphrasing, we don't quite agree with these deductions here. Please send us proof. No problem. Make a copy of the receipts, send them in. Usually closed. There used to be a lot more in-office audits where you go to their office. But at the advent of COVID, yeah, that went virtual. And what that is we want to look a little bit deeper at the thing. So in most cases, it'll be a Zoom, and you'll have a meeting, and we'll talk about it, and I'll send them documents electronically and all that sort of thing. And then we'll see what happens. And, if our stuff's all together, then we walk away with no change. If we made a mistake that if they say, well, we're not going to give you this, I have two choices. I can appeal it, or we can just pay it. And it'll depend on how much it is. If they say, well, we think you should pay us another $20,000, I think you're going to decide you want to appeal.
Sure.
And, we can do that. There are other things we can do. We can take it to tax court if that's the answer. But the third type of audit is the one we really don't want. And that's the one where they come in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And they will look at everything. If you've got a storeroom, they're going to want to look in it to see if maybe you're hiding assets. That is one I'm going to argue for you not to be there. I got a 50-50 shot. And if I lose the argument, we're going to go through the same drill.
Now, what causes them to want to get that? They see something major, they think?
Yeah, quite often it's third-party information.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan's hiding a bunch of money back in the storeroom.
But yeah, I can't even imagine the stress of that.
It can be very stressful. The important thing, there's two things. First, do it right the first time. Do your taxes right. And then if you do get the audit, don't go it alone. As I've said before to people, if you got a ticket for DUI, you wouldn't go to court alone, would you? No. You don't stand an audit alone. You let someone who is licensed and educated in how to deal with auditors.
So that makes perfectly good sense to me. Now, are there any other types of audits?
No, just those three.
Let's hope we don't have any. And I guess the simplest way to do that.
There is one other thing I should mention, because I've seen this happen. Everybody loves social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and posting all these great pictures. If you have a significant asset on art collection or mountain cabin, and you are trying to not report it to the IRS,
don't put it on Facebook.
for the love of God, don't put it on Facebook. And don't tweet about it.
Well, we don't tweet anymore.
Well, whatever, X, whatever. The bottom line is, and I am not advocating hiding assets, but do not, if you're going to plead poverty to the IRS, then do a documentary on your rock and roll collection or your vintage car collection or your coin collection. Because you just shot yourself in the foot and your representative in the back.
There's not much you can do about that once you've
No, you may go to jail
to the
for it.
world.
Yeah. Remember, anything you put on the internet, and I wish I could beat this into every kid in the country, anything you ever put on the internet is there forever. It can't be deleted. It's never totally deleted. It will surface.
Wow. Well, what other lessons or just general tips on dealing with IRS and audit situations?
I think I've mentioned to you before, one of the best pieces of equipment you can own is a scanner. So I'll say that again. The best piece of equipment in your office, the most important piece of equipment from my perspective in your office is a scanner. Why? Because the receipts you get from Office Depot or Home Depot or wherever you get your supplies, most cases, are thermal paper, which will go completely white in a few months. So you take that receipt, you go back to your office, you scan it right away. You've got a digital copy. That won't fade. So if the IRS comes calling in 3 years, they will show me a receipt for this computer you bought. There you go.
Mhm. You know, some of the, there's apps for this now.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody told, I was talking about doing this, because I had heard you say that, but
Right.
really, because I'm not good about keeping my receipts.
Oh,
And so I was going to get this app. And somebody told me that even QuickBooks now has a way to do that.
yes, that's all true. There are apps. QuickBooks will let you scan receipts. But here's the cautionary note. If you cancel your QuickBooks subscription and a year later you get audited, you don't have those images.
Oh, dear. That
So-
hadn't occurred to me.
Whatever method you use, and I don't care how you capture your receipts, but make sure at the end of the year you have them all in one place, in one file that says 2025 receipts. You know, and I don't care how many prep forms you have or how you organize it. That's up to you. But you need to have something that is on your computer with an offsite backup so that if your house burns down, God forbid, and you get audited 6 months later, well, I've got my backup from the cloud. Here's the receipt. More than one taxpayer has lost an audit because they lost the receipt.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I would have been in exactly that position. Because I was just going to use QuickBooks.
Well, you can. Just make sure you have a copy.
Okay. And so I'm in your book here.
Mhm.
I thought one of the best pieces of advice
Mhm.
is the final word: do not cheat.
What have I said? Do it right. Look, most golfers abhor a cheater. If you cheat on the links, that's to a golfer, that's a terrible crime. Most poker players feel the same way. In fact, in the West, people got shot over that. And the IRS won't shoot. But if you cheat, eventually they will catch you. Look, everyone's got to pay their fair share. Or pay some level of taxes. That's what keeps the country, the government running, not the country, the government running. And the penalty for cheating is pretty severe, depending on your level of cheating. The more you cheat, the harder it's going to hurt. And it will hurt.
You go to jail for that.
You can. If the amount is high enough, someone will appear at your door in a three-piece suit and there'll be a slight bulge under the left side. The Criminal Investigation Division, and they're not there to have coffee. They're there to arrest. At that point, I can't help you. Then you need a defense lawyer. Because you're facing criminal, like the guy that I mentioned with the guitars. He was actually a client of a mentor of mine. He went to jail. He also lost his law license.
Wow. So what was it I just said? Wait a minute. The final word: do not cheat. Thank you so much, Steve. This has been.
Right.
I personally picked up 2 or 3 things that are red flags for me. So
Okay,
thank
good.
you much.
All right.
Thanks for watching. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. And make sure to subscribe for more great tax tips and strategies from Steve Perry and Books, Taxes, and more. Visit our website at bookstaxesatl.com for more resources. See you in the next video.